Thank you all for coming. My name is Neil Gatturi, and I'm a junior at River Hill High School. I'm the co-founder of a youth group called Electrify Our Future. Now, Electrify Our Future advocates for sustainable development, more specifically, sustainable development that has generational impacts. And so, policies that have generational impacts are ones that, chiefly right now, are going to change the way we interact with the built environment, right? And the main way we're doing that is through electrification, right? And that's what we're here to talk about today, is the Better Buildings Act. Now, in short, the Better Buildings Act is going to mandate by the end of 2026 that almost all new buildings in Maryland have to be all electric and to have high efficiency standards. And I'm now going to pass it off to Anjali, my co-founder, to tell us about the speakers today.
Hi everyone, thank you for coming today. My name is Anjali Gungalam, and like Neil said, I'm the co-founder of Electrify Our Future. So, Electrify Our Future initially started in Howard County with a bill called CB5, and this bill required the formation of a report that looked into the benefits of electrification. One thing led to another, and Electrify Our Future was born. Electrify Our Future consists of a group of students that are passionate about bringing change and new building electrification into people's lives. The students here today come from all across Maryland, and we're excited for you to hear from the students here today on why they care about the Better Buildings Act, something that would be a fundamental step in the right direction towards new building electrification. Our students are Nyla joining from Montgomery County, Noha from Wacomico County, and potentially we have another student speaker named Leo from Baltimore County. Dr. Galia Sados will be joining in as well, and we might have Delegate Boafo as well today as our speakers. So first up, we have Nyla, uh, and she'll go through on her thoughts about the BBA.
Hello, my name is Nyla Carey. I'm a 12th grader at Clarksburg High School in Montgomery County, Maryland. My favorite part about living in MoCo is the diversity that is present in genuinely every single sense possible that you could think of. Whether it's race, socioeconomic status, you name it, the diversity is present here. And being exposed to such a great diversity has given me such an invaluable insight into people's lives and people who I call my dear friends to this day. And it's also allowed me to see how seemingly minor inequities affects people's homes and people's lives in very big ways, which is why I think equal opportunity is very, very important. And which is also why I don't think that people should be suffering from things that are preventable, such as faulty infrastructure. That's why I'm a huge proponent of the Better Buildings Act. The Better Buildings Act will improve the lives of many Maryland citizens, and people won't have to worry about extreme weather conditions or unethical amounts of air pollution or toxicity-related illnesses. The Better Buildings Act will provide a much better and higher standard in all of these regards. And when students and adults are just trying to live their lives and better their lives for themselves and their families and their communities, it's not right that they should worry about very preventable issues such as the faulty infrastructure or basic human rights and ethical standards of living, which is why I see the Better Buildings Act as a bridge. And I'm really excited to advocate for this act for all. Thank you.
Right then. Thank you, Nyla. And so next up is a student from Wacomico County, Noah Yusuf. Noah, take it away.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Noha, and I'm a junior from Bennett High School on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. And I'm also a Youth Environmental Action Summit ambassador, which is just a local group of students like everyone here. And we work to solve local environmental issues. So, for those of you who are unfamiliar, our region, the Eastern Shore, has an incredibly rich heritage and amazing people, but we do also have a significant population of socioeconomically disadvantaged communities. And so, just as an example, according to the 2023 Alice report by United Way, over a third of households in Maryland struggle to afford the high cost of living. And on the Eastern Shore, that number spikes to 43%. So, many families striving to just make ends meet face soaring rent prices and are often forced to settle for housing without essential electric appliances. So, clearly, the biggest obstacle hindering communities, at least on the Eastern Shore, from adopting green infrastructure is the financial burden. So, in my work with the Youth Environmental Action Summit, I've had so many instances where local residents or business owners will be interested in adopting sustainable projects, but simply can't do so and have to turn us down because of the finances. So, simply put, energy efficiency is financially unattainable for many Marylanders because of our current economic climate. But thankfully, because of acts like the Better Building Act, we do have some hope because these acts can potentially reshape our community's foundation from the ground up. So, by prioritizing energy efficient construction from the outset, we can ensure that all Marylanders, regardless of where we come from, regardless of how much money we have, we can access affordable energy and clean air. So not only does this save residents money on their energy bills, but it also allows us to put that money where we really need it, towards our passions and our priorities. Thank you.
Next up, we have Neil, who will share some of his experiences on the CB5 bill that I previously mentioned in Howard County.
Right then. Thank you, Anjali. So touching back of what Anjali mentioned previously about CV5, we look to the inception of Electrify Our Future. So CB5 began with a group of advocates, primarily led by HOCO Climate Action, sort of rallying around the slogan, if you're in a hole, the first thing you do is stop digging, right? We are in a hole of gas infrastructure being the norm for almost every new building that is created in this state. And it is putting us further and further behind our climate goals and making it harder and harder to actually change the way we have our buildings and retrofit them into a more sustainable and financially affordable way, right? And so the real obvious solution to that is stop digging. Electrify your new buildings, and we can work on plugging this hole by retrofitting buildings in the future. Make no mistake, electrification is the first of many steps in transitioning the way we heat our buildings and the way we use energy in this country. But it is the most critical, it is the most fundamental, and it is one that the state is in the most position to do right now, right? Montgomery County did it. Howard County did it. It is happening throughout the state at a local level. And all we're asking for today is for the state to increase its commitment and just speed up the ability for us to have these electric new buildings, right? And so the final point that I want to make is that in reality, we don't have many methods of advocacy with the state, right? I'm 16 years old. I can't vote. And so this is my only real way to appeal to those in power who have the complete control over my future, right? New buildings are being made to accommodate my, Noah, Nyla, Andre, to accommodate us, our workforce, our addition into the marketplace. And so if we're not allowed to have a say in that, because we're youth, all we can do is talk and ask for some consideration, right? And so I guess our main message to the Maryland State House is, what Maryland do we want to live in? Do we want to prioritize the profits of building constructors and building owners, or the safety, health, and affordability of the tenants who live in those buildings? That's really what this comes down to. And so we'll see the decision that the state makes in the next few weeks, but we hope it's on the side of protecting the citizens, protecting the populace. And to wrap us up, we can have Dr. Panagis Galistados of Johns Hopkins Medicine talk about the health impacts of gas infrastructure to more specificity and to a higher degree.
It's very kind. Thank you so much. And it is an honor to share the virtual stage with such exceptional youthful leaders. To me, it reaffirms that we're in good hands as we move forward. Here's what I would say. As a physician, I'm a lung and critical care doctor. I'm an associate professor at Johns Hopkins, and I take care of a lot of patients with lung disease. And I need to make it crystal clear what I and all my colleagues practice. What we practice is medicine with a hope that it helps achieve health. But when I get patients coming in and out of the emergency room, coming in and out of the hospital, and I go and visit them, or I'll take care of them, or I'll be their critical care doctor in the intensive care unit, listen to these patients as they say, I feel better breathing here than I do at home. Why is that? It's not that we're giving them different meds. They're getting the same medications that I prescribe that they take in their house. What's different is the air that they're breathing at that moment. And as a physician, it is so disheartening to know that my interventions, the trust they put in us to give them therapies to improve their health, will be offset the second they go into their house and taking a deep breath. And this happens for many Marylanders, many Baltimore City citizens. We've seen public health officials act in the past before to stop bad air pollution, either from combustible cigarettes or outdoor air. The same kind of attention needs to be brought to the homes that people look at as a notion of health. Don't rob them of their housing health. I practice medicine with the hopes to achieve health. This bill will be the true promotion of health, saving hundreds of thousands of lives, more than any physician can. And by performing and executing this bill, will help our institutions be reaffirmed as public trusts. And so for that, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gayet-Satters, for those words and for your speech here today. We have another student speaker who will be joining us right now, Leo Abukar. He's from Baltimore County, and he's here to share some student perspective on this issue as well.
Hey everyone. So as a student, I really think the environment and environmental action is a topic that's really close at home for me. So as environment currently has been getting worse and consistently worse over the time, there has to be a time for change. And I really think something that EOF and organizations like that are doing are connecting the student voices that will be affected by the environment as it gets worse to the adults and the policymakers that can make the change happen. So that's why we are here to talk to you as the adults who have connections to policymakers and in general, just talking to policymakers, making legislation happen, because now is the time. Our environment is deteriorating before our eyes, whether you talk about the carbon emissions or deforestation. There are a bunch of different issues that we face. So it's really important for us. We just chose to focus on one that will serve as a starting for an environmental and sustainable future. So the electrification, which, as you all know, is the process of making, specifically for this bill, making buildings use electric power. The main reason that this is so important is by making sure the buildings all use electricity. Then we can take the second step by making sure that electricity is generated renewably. And through that, we can make it so much easier to switch to renewable power and to switch to a more sustainable future. When talking to policymakers, when talking to lawmakers, it's all about attainability. What is attainability? From what we learn in school, I know a lot of you students may know SMART goals, it's all about attainability. So we are not arguing for something that's unattainable or something that's impossible. We're arguing for change that is doable, change that has been done, whether it's in California or DC, whether it's locally here in Howard County and Montgomery County. Building electrification has already been done. It is proven to be possible. It is proven to work. So with that, I urge you all to support and to support electrification in Maryland. As a student, as a student living in a home with gas infrastructure, the statistics that I read are scary. The statistics like there's such a high likelihood of asthma with children who live in gas stoves. That's a scary thing. So just stats like that that yeah, they're scary, but they're not supposed to be. We shouldn't see them as scary. We should see them as alarming for the need for change. So as a student, I really hold this near and dear to my heart because I see this as something that will affect me in my lifetime, will affect me if I become a parent and have my own children. So really it's up to us with you as adults, with your help, to make the change now, to take the first step in electrifying Maryland. And from that, we will have an easier time going and promoting a sustainable future in Maryland, the US, and the world as a whole. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Leo. So with the last remaining few minutes, I actually want to ask the really like leader and the energetic person who is behind this massive campaign for Maryland to give a few words about sort of wrapping up what we've talked about today and explaining very succinctly to the state why it is in their best interest to pass a Better Buildings Act this session. So Doug, if you wouldn't mind giving a few words, it'd be very appreciated.
Thank you, Neil. I really appreciate that. So I'm very moved by all of your testimonies, and it's really powerful stuff. My name is Doug Stiglin. I'm a Howard County resident, and I've volunteered a lot of time for the Chesapeake Climate Action Network over the last couple of years, trying to convince lawmakers to electrify buildings and create more energy efficiency in new buildings. And I'm going down to Annapolis every day now and talking with legislators and trying to get them to pass the Better Buildings Act. We have hearings coming up in the Maryland Senate on Monday and in the Maryland House of Delegates on Wednesday. And those hearings are going to be very important for advocates to make the kinds of testimonials that you have today, because there are going to be opponents. There's the forces of the status quo who are going to be out in number, the utilities, the gas and oil industry, some of the building associations will be against the Better Buildings Act. And it's the kind of testimonials like you're making that are really going to move the legislators. So I want to just thank you so much for your willingness to be here today, taking times out of your busy schedules to be here today. And we hope to be able to amplify your voices in Annapolis, and I hope that it'll have the same effect on legislators that it's had on me today. So thank you, Neil.
And Doug, actually, if I could ask a follow-up question. I'm a viewer of the media and, I'm sitting in my living room and I'm seeing you talk. What should I do to get involved and sort of continue the message?
Yeah, great question, Neil. I really appreciate that. So the bottom line is that legislators need to hear from people, and they need to hear from people soon, because the Maryland legislature is on a very compressed schedule. This gets down in the weeds just a little bit, but we need to have this act passed by either the House of Delegates or the Senate by March 18th. If we don't get the act passed by one way or the other, March 18th, then we're done for the year. So if you're watching the press conference and you want to take some action, the easiest thing to do is to go to the Maryland General Assembly website. It's a really easy to use website. Just Google Maryland General Assembly. Look under the tab that says members, put in your address, find out who your state senator is, find out who your delegates are, and just send them a real quick email or make a call to the office that says, I've learned about the Better Buildings Act, which would disallow the burning, the combustion of fossil fuels in new buildings, and I really want you to pass it. That's going to be the biggest action step you can take. Find your senator, find your 3 delegates, and let them know long before March 18th, because if we don't get it done by March 18th, it's not going to be done this year.
Right there. Thank you. And I guess we can now open it up to questions just from the group as a whole, if there's any that'll appear in the Q&A.
I just, if I could, before we go there, and maybe there aren't any questions, but let me just make one other point. The Chesapeake Climate Action Fund contracted with a very prestigious opinion research firm to test what public opinion is on the Better Buildings Act. And the public response was overwhelming. That when asked the question of if there was a bill called the Better Buildings Act that would disallow fossil fuels and promote better energy efficiency in new buildings, would you support it? 80% of the people in a random poll supported it. And that's true about Democrats, it's true about independents, and it's true about Republicans. I think the number was 63% of the Republicans that were asked that question said, yes, I would support that legislation. So the poll results, the desire of Marylanders to have legislation like this is overwhelming. 80% would like to see this legislation passed. And we hope that our legislators are going to be able to understand that there's great public demand for it, particularly among students, particularly among young people that are going to have to live with our actions for a long time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Doug, for those words. I completely agree, especially considering that regardless of party, it's our future that is going to be impacted by bills like these and by what's going to come next. So yeah, exactly. Infrastructure, we really need to work on that. And then to reiterate, going off of what Neil said, if you have any questions, feel free to type them into Q&A. And if not, we can just discuss a bit more about our opinions on the bill and more on EOF as well.
Yeah. So I see a question in the chat. It says, how can the Better Buildings Act reduce air pollution in Maryland? And that answer is very simple. It stops the combustion of fossil fuels in certain buildings. And by combusting fossil fuels in our buildings, we obviously emit fossil fuels. But as Dr. Galistados was talking about, we're also harming our health, right? And I'll give a personal example for it. Both me and my brothers, two of them, we all have asthma. Our home has a gas stove. Both of my parents grew up, no health issues, nothing at all. Our asthma began when we moved into this home with the gas stove. Before, we had lived in a home with an electric stove, right? And of course, this isn't like a very scientific empirical study, but it reiterates and it reaffirms all the literature that has come out, which places having a gas infrastructure in the home akin to secondhand smoke or the impacts of having real fossil fuels combusted in your home and kept by the walls in the air of your house, circulating over and over, getting into your system. It's not okay. It has to end. And if there's no other questions, then I want to say again, thank you to everyone who came. And I think this was a really great press conference. Everyone's voices was, it was very good to hear. It was very good to hear.
Yes,
And,
thank you so much, everyone. And we hope that we can see your continued support for the hearings coming up. And hopefully we can get some action done and get the Better Buildings Act passed.
There was one last question in the chat specifically for Doug. It was, can the grid handle upgrading new buildings with heat pumps?
That's absolutely the Maryland Public Service Commission, which is the regulatory agency for the grid in the state of Maryland, did a very complex study, and the study was released at the end of December. And the short version of the results is that the growth in demand on the grid, depending on whether you do more conservation activities or not, is someplace between 0 and 1.2%. And that compares to historical rates of growth in the 80s and 90s up through 2010 of about 4% a year. So the growth rate, the demand on the grid is absolutely within historic norms, much lower than historic norms. And the more conservation we do, the better energy efficiency we do in our buildings, the less demand there is on the grid. So there's no question about that whatsoever.
right, thank you. And again, to put it very shortly, we can do it, we want to do it, we should do it. Pass the BBA by March 18th. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you for your advocacy.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.